Hey guys, so today I thought I would sit down and kind of do a yearly recap of the books I read in 2022. I know normally my channel is more beauty focused, more gift suggestion focused, but I am a book lover and I've gotten a lot of suggestions on books to read from other YouTubers that I follow. So I figured maybe some of you might be interested to hear what I read last year, what I thought was worth it, what I thought was definitely not worth it. So if you'd like to hear kind of a recap and my reviews of the books I read in 2022, then just keep watching. First off, let me start by telling you the book series I am currently reading. I'm filming this in early December and that's what I'm reading right now. I plan to finish it by the end of December, hopefully. But it is the Red Queen series from Victoria Aveyard. I'm reading this one on suggestion of Brooklyn and Bailey. I follow their channel and they gave a whole list of their favorite book series and this was among it and it's really good so far. I am about halfway through Red Queen and it's really, really good. I have all 5 books and plan to read them this December. I am also currently reading this one right here, which is Grace-Based Discipline from Karis Kimmel Murray. I do meet with a group of mom friends twice a month to discuss parenting, faith, relationship things, life things, just kind of get together and share our struggles, share what's been working, what hasn't been working. And we also have been going through this book and it's been really interesting so far about like paring down how many household rules you have to simplify things, like instead of use nice words, use nice hands, use this, just simplify it into one rule of be kind. So kids have less to remember and it kind of makes sense. So I'm currently reading this, maybe about a third of the way through it. So that's what I'm reading right now. I am also reading a book series that's a bunch of Christian mystery books and it's called Winter Deceptions and it was 99 cents on Amazon Prime with one of my favorite authors, Dan Walsh. He had a little mini book in there and so those are kind of mystery books that I'm currently reading and they're little novellas so I can kind of read it in a sitting without committing to much. So like if I want to break from like the 5-book series, I'll just like slip a little mystery in the middle for a little break. But that's what I'm currently reading right now. So let's move on now to the books I read this year. Going back to the beginning of the year was a book called When I Found You by Catherine Ryan Hyde. And it was about a man that was hunting with his dog and he found what he thought was a dead baby in the woods. Turns out it wasn't a dead baby, it was a live baby. And that child was sent to the grandmothers to be raised. And then years later, a troubled boy shows up on his doorstep wanting to know the story. So it was really interesting. I personally really enjoyed it and I would recommend. I personally love the stories about like children finding families or finding their home or reconnecting. Obviously I'm an adoptive mom, so like those stories always like speak to me. The next one is Until Leaves Fall in Paris, Sarah Sundin. This is a historical fiction, a historical Christian fiction book, and hers always center around the war. This one was when the Nazis march into Paris. This girl who's a ballerina, she decides to buy a bookshop off of her Jewish friends because they have to leave. Obviously, they couldn't stay in Paris during World War II. So she buys this little bookshop to allow them to escape, like pays for the bookshop to give them money to leave. And then she tries to find ways to make this bookshop useful to the resistance or the people that are not pro-Nazi. So it's interesting. It's like her way to kind of help in a small way is by passing secret notes through the books at the bookstore. So really interesting. I would highly recommend all of her books. Next one is a new author for me. This is Little Beach Street Bakery. It's #1 in the Beach Street Bakery line and it's from Jenny Colgan. It says, Polly Waterford is recovering from a toxic relationship. Unable to afford her flat, she has to move miles away to a sleepy little seaside resort where she lives above an abandoned shop. And she turns her stress reliever, which is baking, into a job, a way to earn income. And of course, it's like, you know, she doesn't think she's going to find friends. She doesn't think she's going to stay here long. And of course, she forms friendships and finds relationships in unexpected places. It was good. It was a little predictable and a little bit slow paced. So I think I gave it like 3.5 stars, but it was still a good read. The next one, Peacock Emporium by Jojo Moyes, who I usually really enjoy, but hers are hit or miss. Some of them I absolutely love. Like Me Before You, that was fantastic. This one, I couldn't even get past page like 40 or 50. I just wasn't interested at all. So I gave that one a 1 star. I wouldn't recommend it. Another new author I discovered last year, this is All That It Takes by Nicole Deese. Her first one was, I can't remember the name of it, but her first book I loved. Her first book was about a YouTuber that needed to find a charitable cause. And of course, in the process of finding her charitable cause, she actually found her life's calling. That was book 1. This is book 2. So it's like a continuation of it. And it was definitely good. I really like Nicole Deese's writing style, but I think the first one in that series was my favorite. So this one I gave a 4-star. It was still good, but I don't think it was quite as good as the first. And as a beauty YouTuber, I kind of could relate to the first book a little bit more, but both great. I would definitely recommend checking out any of the books from Nicole Deese. Next one, The Sweet Life, which was about a creamery. This one was by Suzanne Woods Fisher, who I have read a handful of books from in the past. And the description is, Dawn Dixon can hardly believe she's on a groomless honeymoon on beautiful Cape Cod with her mother. They buy a rundown ice cream shop in the town's tightly regulated historic district, and they're met with adversity. But it's just what everyone needed. So as you can imagine, she's upset about being left at the altar. She's on her honeymoon with her mom. Her mom decides to just spontaneously buy an old abandoned creamery because ice cream fixes everything, right? So, you know, it was that cute, heartwarming small town, like recovering from a broken heart story. I really enjoyed it. The Ringmaster's Daughter by Carly Shabowski. I'll read this one because this one was interesting. I read this one on vacation. 20-year-old Michael Bonet lives on the edge of the law, finding work where he can at a horse fair on the outskirts of the city. But when Paris falls to the Nazis, Michael escapes as a stowaway on a secret midnight train bound for the south. It's a journey that will change his life forever. He's joined the circus. Here he meets Frida. And Frida is this beautiful girl that's in the circus, but Frida is keeping a secret that she's sworn to carry with her until the grave. So if you enjoyed The Night Circus, I read that one a handful of years ago and I remember loving it, you would definitely enjoy this one. It has to do a lot with World War II and trying to escape and the rules that were put in place, and then also circus life and what they deal with. Would definitely recommend. You Can't Touch My Hair and Other Things I Still Have to Explain by Phoebe Robinson. I believe she is a comedian. So she wrote this book because often people ask her questions or say, can I touch your hair? Or she's left to explain Black culture to non-Black people. And having 3 Black children currently, we get a lot of questions about hair care, skin care, terminology. I have to educate myself. So I often find myself in that same situation where I am asking other brown-skinned individuals, what should I do with this? Or how do you handle this? I'm trying to do better of educating myself through watching YouTube videos, reading books like this. And I thought this would be more informative, but it ended up just being a lot more her personal life stories, which I wasn't super interested in. So I gave it a 3-star. Mad Honey by Jodi Picoult. Again, her books are hit or miss. This one was really good. Asher falls for a new girl in school and Lily can't help but fall for him too. With Ash, she feels happy for the first time, yet at times she wonders if she can trust him completely. Then one day, the mom receives a phone call. Lily is dead and Asher is being questioned by the police. The mom is adamant her son is innocent. But she would be lying if she didn't acknowledge that the flashes of his father's temper in him, and as the case against him unfolds, she realizes he's hidden more than he's shared with her. Really interesting. There is a plot twist about 60% of the way through the book, and I am not going to ruin it for you, but I did not see it coming. Normally I can predict book endings, who did it. This one had me until the very end, so highly recommend. Bookshop of Secrets. This one is a newer one, Molly Rushmeyer. Really good. So here we go. Somewhere in the towering stacks of the dusty old bookshop are the books that hold Hope's last ties to her late mother and to a rumored family treasure that could help her start over. The bookshop is in shambles, the owner is losing his mind, and she doesn't know where to start looking. So she comes to town planning not to stay long because she doesn't like to get attached. She doesn't like to form attachments for fear that someone could hurt her because of her past. And then she has to find this book, which she needs money to live. So she starts working for the bookshop owner, getting attached to them, getting attached to the people in this small town. So I enjoyed it because I'm a bookie and there's tons of book quotes, book lines, references to other novels in here that you guys would enjoy if you also enjoy reading. So I would recommend that one, 5 stars from me. What Happened to the Bennetts, Lisa Scottolini. I believe this is one of her newer ones. driving his family home after his daughter's lacrosse game when a pickup truck begins tailing them on a dark stretch of road. Suddenly, two men jump out from the pickup truck and pull guns on them, demanding the car. A horrific flash of violence changes his life forever. So they end up being put in witness protection while trying to keep their life safe. But there's so many twists in the plot that you think it's just a random like drive-by situation. Then you find out there are connections to this and to that, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it was a really good book, another 5-star. The Edge by Lucy Gocher, and I believe she's a brand new author. Listen to this one. Everyone says Poppy jumped. My beautiful creative sister with her paint splattered dress and sunshine smile took her own life. And I think they're right until the day I speak to Daniel. Hold on. Until the day I speak to Daniel. Everyone says his sister jumped too, but he has proof that she was pushed. And if she was, I have to ask myself, could the same thing have happened to Poppy? This was a really compelling story. The sister believes that Poppy committed suicide, so she starts volunteering for a suicide hotline. And then she starts hearing stories that all sound similar to her sister's. Then she finds out that other suicide victims had things left behind that her sister also left behind. So then she starts making connections and she meets Daniel. Really interesting, really compelling. Definitely check out this author. She's one to watch. Treacherous Waters, which is number 4 in the Joe Boyd suspense series from Dan Walsh. I highly recommend Dan Walsh's books. I've been a big fan of his since his very first book came out a handful of years ago. He is a Christian fiction author, but I would compare him to Nicholas Sparks. He writes books that make you want to keep reading, you fall in love with the characters, and he doesn't push the faith angle at you. So if you are not a Christian, if you don't want Christian fiction, you don't want Bible verses spewed at you, or like pray for this every other word, that's not how he writes. It's just very subtly slipped in, like maybe I should stop by church sometime, that type of thing. Highly recommend. His books are fantastic. This one is no exception. This is when a fishing trip turns up an old car mirror at the bottom of a lake, which leads to an investigation. Why was there a mirror down there? Is there a car attached? Was someone driving the car? Then why was a body in a car at the bottom of a lake? Read it for yourself. Next up, we have this entire series. This is the Selection series by Kiera Cass. Highly, highly recommend. This is another recommendation from Brooklyn and Bailey. They have a similar taste to me in that I enjoy book series like The Hunger Games, Divergent series, all of those types of things. So really, really good. What this is about, it says 35 girls, the selection is a chance of a lifetime. The opportunity to escape a life laid out for them since birth, to be swept up in a world of glittering gowns and jewels, to live in a palace, compete for the heart of Prince Maxon. But for America, being selected is a nightmare. It means turning her back on her secret love with Aspen, who is the caste below her, leaving her home to enter a fierce competition for a crown she doesn't want, living in a palace that is constantly threatened by violent rebel attacks. Then America meets Prince Maxon. Gradually, she starts to question all the plans she made for herself and realizes that the life she's always dreamed of may not compare to the future she never imagined. So obviously, book 1 is about getting into the selection, and then it keeps going from there. So I had all 5 books, loved them, finished probably all these in like 6 or 7 days. They were really, really good. A Quilt for Christmas, Melody Carlson. She comes out with a Christmas book every year and I always read it. They're always like light, heartwarming, predictable, but enjoyable and fast. Like if I know I just want to sit down with a cup of tea and have like an enjoyable, quick read, that's what I go for. This one I loved, Dangerous Beauty by Melissa Coslin. It says, after escaping the clutches of human traffickers from her poor Mexican village, she can't stay safely over the border in America unless a man who aided in her rescue is serious about his proposal to marry her. So this girl was taken from her home. Her whole family was killed because she was so beautiful that they wanted to use her as a trafficker. So after escaping that life, the only way to stay safe is to marry this like ranger. Of course, he has a backstory and he has to learn to earn her trust because obviously she has a past. If you enjoyed Francine Rivers' book, Redeeming Love, you would love this book. Highly, highly, highly recommend. Fantastic. Life After Windows by Inez Inez something. This was claimed to be a story all about 9/11, but it was actually more a book about becoming a wine sommelier and in the process experiencing 9/11. So she started in the basement handling all the wine bottles for the restaurants in the 9/11 buildings in the Twin Towers. And then she moved her way up to be the person that would recommend wine and being a sommelier. And during the course of that, the 9/11 attacks happened, and she happened to be out of town and miss it. But most of her friends were killed. So then it becomes like moving on with life after going something like that, where that was your whole life. So it was definitely a really good book, especially if you are a wine connoisseur. Lots of things I didn't even know about because I am not a wine drinker, but it was a really good read. Just not so much 9/11 focused. It was more on becoming a wine sommelier than anything. This next one, A Spark of Light from Jodi Picoult. Wow. Wow, wow. Okay, so first off, this book is told from current time backward. So it shows you what happened and then how you got there. And most of the time I don't like books like this, but for this one, it really worked because it explained the explosion of what happened and then how they all got there, and it all started to make sense by the end of the book. So this one it's about a women's reproductive health service clinic, an abortion clinic. And late in the morning, a desperate and distraught gunman bursts in and opens fire, taking all inside hostage. And then the hostage negotiator finds out that his daughter is inside because she wanted to get on the pill, and she went in with her aunt, not knowing that this was going to happen. So then it becomes a battle of like, how do I keep my daughter safe? How do I do my job? Why is this man in here? The stories of the other women inside the clinic, which aren't all what you think they are. Really compelling, really thought-provoking. Highly recommend reading that one. Sold on a Monday. Heartbreaking. So this was a story during like the Great Depression where a newspaper photographer snaps a photograph of two children with a sign that says "Children for Sale." And it was a real sign. This woman was so desperate that she was willing to sell her children to get them a better life because she couldn't afford to take care of them. So this man takes a picture of them on a whim, never intending for it to be published, but it becomes published and like skyrockets his career. But it has really bad repercussions for the children that were in the picture, the family that was in the picture. So then he sets off on a mission to make it right. Really, really good story. And it actually takes part in northern Pennsylvania, from the area where my husband is from. But those are the books I read in 2022. I am on Goodreads if any of you would like to add me as a friend, see my reviews, see what I'm reading, what I want to read, and what I have read. And you can also go on and read other people's reviews, which is super helpful. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you enjoy books similar to me, leave me some suggestions down below. I love trying clean novels. I don't like a lot of novels with a lot of sex and language. But if you have other suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys had a great 2022, and I will see you next year. Bye, guys.